Foundation. Ooh, voice crack. Foundation. You have to start somewhere. Everything starts somewhere. You can't build a house on a foundation of sand. You may have heard the phrase. But unless you're the Italians, you can build an entire tower on a foundation of sand. They call that the Leaning Tower of Pisa. What Pisa? The metaphor there is, if you grow tall on a weak foundation, you might be famous for being a failure. All it does is lean. It's fantastic. I love the idea of foundation. It reminds me of the fundamentals. It's important to be down by the basics. And I'm distracted as I say this because there's a cockroach crawling right by my feet. It's very obnoxious, and I'm scared to look down. But we're going to keep on going. You have to bring it back to the fundamentals. The fundamentals, the foundation, the basics are what everything useful of substance is constructed from, right? The foundation, you can imagine, are like the individual Lego bricks that you build your house, your structure, your spaceship out of. I love the idea of foundation because the future is dependent on the things that you lay down for it. If you imagine you're building a future, it's like you're stacking bricks on top of the foundations that you lay. And I love this graph here. This is a famous graph. This is the bifurcating graph. And the idea is pretty simple. Each one of these lines, if you know functions, you'll know that, you're not supposed to have a function that doesn't pass the vertical line test. That means if you draw a vertical line between any 2 points, well, you shouldn't. You shouldn't be able to do that. And the reason why you can with this bifurcating function is because this is actually a collection of thousands of functions, right? The idea is they all start very similarly. They start with, a nice straight line, right? But you change one parameter, just the tiniest bit, the tiniest flick and poke in one direction. And as time goes on, it hits a point where it just flicks and it diverts, it diverges, it finds a path. And as time goes on, even those paths flick over, they diverge a little bit more until eventually you get these incredibly dense, varying, chaotic structures as you get towards the end, towards the future. This is what it's like to predict the future. You never know what's going to change. You never know what variables you don't have precisely right, which is why you'll never know how chaos takes hold and throws the future astray into something that you would never even expect. And I believe the word foundation applies to this because your own foundation is what helps you choose your path. You can imagine that function as a sequence of paths in front of you. And sure, you might not know what's 5-10 years down the line, but you do know what's right in front of you, more or less. And you get to pick and choose based on the way that you structure the foundation that you work on. It can be kind of a daunting idea that maybe the way you were born, the circumstances of which you started, prescribe the nature of the rest of your life. But that's not quite true because we have within us the capacity to lay down new foundation, to learn new ideas, to learn new structures and patterns and recognize new pathways in front of us on which we can travel. So figure out your foundations. And once you have a firm one, you can start stacking whatever you like to on top.